Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm enjoying your week so far. We're into May now, which is kind of crazy that we are already in the last month of spring here, last month of school for most of you, but we're here, we made it. And so we're going to continue to look at, this is our last week, but we're going to continue to look at books of the Bible that we may know the name of, but may not know what it's about, or more importantly, maybe what it means for us today. And so this week, our last week, we're going to look at the book of Hebrews. Hebrews is one of the letters written in the New Testament. We don't know for sure who the author of Hebrews is. We're pretty sure it wasn't Paul. It's not one of Paul's letters. It may have been Barnabas, who was one of Paul's friends, or someone else. But I would argue that the main purpose or the point of Hebrews is we don't really need to know who the author is. I think that the audience of who the letter was to and what it's about are a little more important. And so the audience that the letter was written to originally was this group of Jewish people that had been converted to Christianity. So they grew up as part of God's people. They were Jewish. But then Jesus came and kind of changed the game, really. And so they were now believers in Jesus, having come from Judaism. But now they had this kind of new reality. They had this other person that connected them to God. And these people were kind of being tempted or had been thinking about returning to Judaism. They had been in this relationship with God for such a long time that some of them just kind of thought, like, why do I need this Jesus person as my kind of, pathway or relationship to God? I've known God through my faith my whole life. Why do I need Jesus now? And so they were tempted kind of to return to that old way of thinking. And so the author writes to them in the book of Hebrews, and basically the whole book is about Jesus. It's about how he is our kind of supreme leader, how he is the one who God promised, who God sent, who died for us. It's God's fulfillment of his covenant with his people. And that Jesus is greater than the angels, he's greater than the priests, he's greater than Moses. And the author kind of goes on and on about who Jesus is and why he's important to us now in our relationship with God. That he is God in the flesh, that he's not just this side kind of person that we can choose to follow or not, but he is God and he is God's son, and how important that is for us in our relationship with him. Now, the audience, the Jewish people, that was probably a hard message to hear because they had been, like I said, practicing Judaism, so they already had this relationship with God, and now this new thing happens, and that new thing being Jesus. And so they were tempted to kind of go away from that and say, well, do we really need him? Do we really need to have Jesus in order to get to God? And the author's answer to that is yes. Jesus is needed for our relationship with God. And so what can we take from that for us today? We are also kind of in this difficult new time, just in our history as individuals and as a community, where we're uncertain of things, and we're asking ourselves kind of maybe similar questions like, why do we need this happening? Why is this the new way it's going to be? For the Jews, in the book of Hebrews, they were asking, like, is this the way it's always going to be? Is Christ, is he here for good? Is he always going to be God's representative? And the answer is yes. It's a little different for us. We don't have as clear cut of future going forward about certainty with our lives. We don't know what those are going to look like. But we do know that Jesus still is our pathway to God. He wasn't some one-time answer. And so all of the descriptions and characteristics that the author uses of Jesus are true to us today. He is still our Savior, our Comforter, our God, and he's also our way to God. He facilitates that relationship. And so what we can find in Hebrews is really this encouraging message about who Jesus is and what he means in our lives, and that it's true today, as true as it was when the author wrote the book. And so you can look for that in our blog this week online, as long as some discussion questions you can go through on your own, or you can talk about them with friends or family, however you want. The movie this week that I have for you is Jurassic Park. Now, some of you may have seen some of the newer ones. I think there's like 5 or 6 of them now, I'm not certain. But the one that I'm talking about is the original one that's made back in the 1990s. It's something, so it's the first one, the oldest one. And what I want you to watch for in the movie is there's kind of 2 main kids, who are just the characters in the movie, and there's 2 main adults who kind of end up in a similar situation that they do. The kids whose names are Tim and Lex, or Lexi, they come to Jurassic Park with their grandpa, but they end up with these other 2 adults who are named Grant and Ellie. And I want you to watch how Grant and Ellie care for these 2 kids. What do they do to go out of their way in order to make sure they're safe, in order to comfort them, in order to provide for them, in order for them to survive, but then also, how are they being a friend relationally? How are they maybe being a father and mother figure to these kids? And so take a look at that and ask yourself, how is their relationship and how is their care kind of mirrored in God's relationship with me? How does God care for me? How does he provide for me? What are some characteristics of God? What are some emotions that he has that get me through things, right? If you know Jurassic Park, it's obviously kind of the story about people encountering dinosaurs, and it's this kind of perilous journey they go on, which we all go on perilous journeys sometimes. And so how do these 2 adults, Grant and Ellie, care for and ultimately provide for these 2 kids, Tim and Lexi? And then ask yourself, how does God care for and provide for me? So thanks for listening. This is our last video, like I said, for the spring. Hope you have a great summer. I will be in touch with some other stuff, and we hopefully will see each other in person very soon.